Hey E36 fanatics, Steven here. Today I'm going to be pulling off my intake manifold on my 1996 BMW 328i. The 96s and up are M52 OBD2 intake manifolds. The earlier ones are M50s. There's not a big difference, but there's a little difference. A lot of people online will tell you that you got to remove your entire wire harness and everything, and remove all this and get it out of the way. That's BS. You don't have to remove the whole thing. I've done this before. You don't have to remove the whole thing. You do have to remove your wiper cowl, your windshield wipers, and once you do that, you give this like an inch or two of space. If you're trying to pull this thing out and it's not moving, don't keep screwing with it, because once you got everything loosened up, it's actually pretty easy to pull out. Alright, before you start pulling intake components and everything, you're going to want to go ahead and head over here. Number 18, which I already pulled. It's a blue 15 amp. Well, yours might not be blue, but it should be 15 amp. That is going to be your fuel pump fuse. You're going to want to go ahead and pull it. It should be right between these two green right beside these two green fuses. Once you've pulled that, go ahead and cut your car on. Oh, it didn't even cut on. Wow. Well, good. Try one more time. Disconnect your battery. Reason for that is you're working very close to the starter and it's got constant current running to it. So here's where a lot of people should probably start labeling, or you should probably, because you're going to be pulling off a lot of lines and a lot of hoses and sensors. So it's a good idea to typically label a lot of this stuff. The mass airflow sensor connector and the cruise control connector are pretty obvious. You don't, label what you think is necessary. Basically, if you pull off the intake manifold on these vehicles, they're a little bit more complicated under here than the older ones and the 4-cylinder ones. This is an M52. This is a 1996. So I'm just going to be showing you, if you forgot to wire or forgot to write down where a few wires go, or maybe you just took some photos and, like me, the camera didn't take it for some reason. Basically, I'm going to just remind y'all where everything goes. So you got quite a few vacuum lines running underneath here and some wires. You have, what you had to disconnect obviously was the one to the idle control valve. You had to disconnect the one to the intake manifold temperature sensor. The CCV doesn't have one. It's a mechanical, so you don't have to worry about that. But you do have to worry about the dipstick hose, which on this vehicle is right down here. And then you've got this vacuum line with a T at the end and a check valve on it. That is running all the way up to the fuel rail. That's an easy way to tell because it mounts on the fuel rail. And then you've got a wire that's also attached to the Vanos solenoid. The other wire on it actually also runs to the end of the fuel rail. So you've also got NOx sensors down here, which I didn't need to disconnect. You got heater hoses that run to the throttle body from the head. You've got this right here. This sensor right here is a coolant temperature sensor for the cylinder head. I've already replaced that. I've also got an oil pressure sensor right here I've also replaced. And then you've got your Vanos line, which if you've pulled your intake manifold, you better go ahead and replace your Vanos line if you haven't done it before, because they're known for weeping later in life. And you're going to want to get 2 new crush washers as well. So that's been replaced. And then this is also a really good time to replace your starter, which is right down here. It's got a couple lines running to it, a hot line from here, and then you've got a line right here running to it from the wire harness. Let me see. So this one right here is going to be your temperature sensor for the intake manifold. It is running from all the way down here. You can also tell because it's a little bit smaller than your idle control valves, which is right here. And then you've got your throttle position sensor, which is right here. This is also a good time to change your oil filter housing gasket, which I've already done as well. I got a little bit of a video for it. Another little tip is that apparently some of the E36s do not have the two brackets holding on the intake manifold. It's really tough to tell if there's a second bracket just looking at it when the intake manifold's still on, but you know, once it's all out, it's really easy to see what's holding it. So you got your primary bracket right here, which is pretty easy to disconnect. There's a 10mm bolt that holds it into the intake manifold. And then you've got a second one. This one was a pain in the ass to do, to disconnect this one. I didn't actually notice it at first, and I was trying to pull out the manifold and I couldn't figure out what was holding it in, and it was this bracket. So it's got a 10mm bolt right here that holds it in. And then let me see, you got your dipstick tube. You've got a couple other lines running around. You've got that T, which is down there. It's actually running off of a line that I've still got on the intake manifold, which is this right here. You can tell by it's got this sheathing on it. That's the line that runs to there. And then you've got this line right here, which goes to your intake manifold as well. It's pretty easy to tell where it goes because it's the bigger one right here. And then you've got one more smaller line that also plugs into the intake manifold. So you got 3 lines plugging into the intake manifold at the bottom. Besides, of course, the auto control valve hose and all that good stuff too.